Night settles over the plateau of the Great Pyramid of Giza, and the vast desert grows silent beneath the stars. The wind moves across the sand with a low, distant murmur, brushing the ancient stones that have stood here for more than 4.5 millennia. From the outside, the pyramid appears immovable and mute, a colossal mountain of limestone rising from the earth. Yet hidden within its immense mass lies a chamber where sound behaves in ways that continue to puzzle scientists, historians, and engineers alike. Deep inside the structure, beyond the narrow ascending passages and the soaring corridor of the Grand Gallery, there is a room carved from enormous blocks of red granite. This chamber, known today as the King's Chamber, has long been associated with mystery. Visitors who enter this quiet granite space often notice something subtle yet unsettling. The air seems unusually still, and when a person speaks even softly, the sound does not fade in the ordinary way. Instead, it lingers, expanding gently through the chamber, as though the room itself were participating in the act of listening. A whisper travels farther than expected. A quiet hum seems to hover in the air long after the voice has fallen silent. Even the smallest movement, breathing, shifting feet, the rustle of fabric, appears to carry through the space with unusual clarity. Some visitors describe the sensation as though the chamber were alive with faint vibrations, responding almost imperceptibly to human presence. The explanation begins with physics. Sound is not simply a sensation of the ear, but a physical phenomenon, a series of pressure waves moving through the air. These waves travel outward from their source until they encounter surfaces that either absorb them or reflect them back into the surrounding space. In most buildings, walls and furnishings soften these reflections, scattering and absorbing the sound so that it fades naturally. But the granite surfaces inside the King's Chamber behave very differently. Granite is an exceptionally dense and rigid stone. When sound waves strike it, very little of their energy is absorbed. Instead, the waves are reflected almost completely, bouncing from wall to wall and floor to ceiling. Each reflection carries the sound back into the room, reinforcing the vibrations already present in the air. In such a space, sound does not simply dissipate, it circulates. The dimensions of the chamber intensify this effect. The room measures roughly 10.5 meters in length, a little over 5 meters in width, and nearly 6 meters in height. These proportions create a natural environment for what physicists call resonance, a condition in which waves reinforce one another at particular frequencies. When a sound matches the natural frequency of the space, its energy can build rather than fade. The result is a subtle amplification that makes certain tones seem fuller, deeper, and strangely persistent. Measurements conducted by modern acoustical researchers suggest that the chamber resonates most strongly at low frequencies, roughly around the range of a deep human voice. When someone speaks in that register, the sound waves align closely with the chamber's natural resonance. The granite walls reflect the vibrations back into the air with remarkable efficiency, and the sound acquires an almost musical quality, as though the chamber itself were acting as a resonant instrument. Within this stone room stands another enigmatic object, a massive granite coffer, often described as a sarcophagus. Its interior is hollow, its edges sharply cut with astonishing precision. When struck gently, the stone produces a resonant tone that rings faintly through the chamber. The sound is not loud, but it is clear and sustained, suggesting that the block itself possesses acoustic properties similar to a resonating body. Granite, however, holds another curious characteristic. Embedded within its crystalline structure are countless grains of quartz. Quartz is known to exhibit a phenomenon called the piezoelectric effect, in which mechanical stress applied to the crystal generates a small electrical charge. In modern technology, this property is harnessed in devices ranging from precision clocks to sensitive microphones. When quartz crystals are compressed or vibrated, they convert mechanical energy into electrical signals with remarkable reliability. Inside the pyramid's granite chambers, sound waves produce minute vibrations within the stone itself. These vibrations are extraordinarily small, far too subtle to generate significant electrical effects under ordinary conditions. Yet the presence of quartz within the granite raises an intriguing possibility. The chamber is not merely reflecting sound in the air, the stone itself may be participating in the vibrational exchange, responding microscopically to every wave that passes through it. Whether the builders of the pyramid understood this phenomenon remains an open question. What is certain, however, is that they demonstrated an extraordinary mastery of materials and geometry. The granite blocks that form the chamber weigh many tons each, yet they are cut and fitted with astonishing accuracy. The joints between them are so tight that even today, thousands of years later, the seams appear almost seamless. Such precision was not easy to achieve in the ancient world. Quarrying granite required enormous labor, as well as sophisticated techniques for shaping one of the hardest stones known to ancient craftsmen. Transporting those blocks from distant quarries along the Nile and positioning them deep inside the pyramid demanded a level of planning and engineering that still inspires admiration among modern archaeologists. The question that lingers in the quiet of the chamber is simple yet profound. Were these acoustic effects merely an accidental consequence of architecture, a natural result of granite walls arranged within a rectangular room? Or did the builders deliberately create a space where sound would behave in this extraordinary way? Ancient Egyptian culture placed immense importance on spoken words, chants, and sacred utterances. In their religious traditions, creation itself was sometimes described as an act of speech. Words once spoken were believed to possess power, shaping reality through vibration and intention. If such ideas influenced the design of the pyramid, the chamber may have served not merely as a silent tomb, but as a place where sound could take on heightened significance. Standing within that granite room today, surrounded by stone older than most recorded history, the experience remains quietly unsettling. Speak a single word, and it moves through the chamber with unexpected clarity. Hum a low note, and the air seems to answer with a faint resonance that lingers at the edge of perception. It is as though the pyramid remembers every sound that has ever passed through its chambers, holding the echoes in patient silence. And so the question remains, suspended in the still air of that ancient room. What happens when a human voice enters a space shaped by perfect geometry and unyielding stone? Does the sound simply fade into the darkness of the pyramid's corridors? Or does the structure itself respond, quietly amplifying the vibration, allowing the voice to become part of something far older and far larger than the speaker could ever imagine? Subscribe to our channel if you are interested in this journey. To understand the strange behavior of sound within the depths of the Great Pyramid of Giza, one must begin with a principle that lies at the heart of physics itself. It is a phenomenon that shapes music, architecture, engineering, and even the subtle vibrations that govern matter at the smallest scales. That principle is known as resonance. Resonance occurs when a vibrating force meets a system that naturally oscillates at the same frequency. When the two align, energy no longer disperses randomly. Instead, it accumulates. Each new vibration reinforces the last, and the motion grows stronger with every cycle. What begins as a modest vibration can intensify into something powerful, sometimes dramatically so. The principle is familiar in everyday life, though it often passes unnoticed. When a musician plucks a string on a guitar, the sound we hear does not come only from the string itself. The vibration travels into the wooden body of the instrument, which resonates in sympathy with the string's motion. The hollow chamber of the guitar amplifies the sound, allowing it to project into the surrounding air with warmth and depth. The same principle shapes the design of grand musical instruments such as violins, cellos, and pianos. Each instrument contains carefully proportioned cavities that encourage certain frequencies to resonate while dampening others. In this way, the instrument becomes more than a source of sound. It becomes a sculptor of vibration, shaping raw energy into rich musical tones. Resonance can also appear on a far larger scale. In great cathedrals, architects discovered centuries ago that sound behaves differently beneath high stone vaults. A single choir voice can fill the immense space of a cathedral nave, carried along by the reflections of stone walls and vaulted ceilings. The architecture itself becomes part of the music, guiding and sustaining the sound so that it lingers long after the final note has been sung. But resonance is not always gentle or harmonious. In the natural world, it can produce effects of surprising power. Engineers who design bridges must consider the possibility that wind or rhythmic movement could match the natural frequency of the structure. When that happens, the oscillations can build until the structure begins to sway dangerously. History records several dramatic failures where resonance amplified vibrations until bridges twisted and collapsed under their own motion. Even earthquakes reveal the hidden force of resonance. When seismic waves pass through the ground, they interact with buildings and geological formations that possess their own natural frequencies. If those frequencies align, the shaking can intensify dramatically, causing structures to vibrate far more violently than their surroundings. In such moments, resonance transforms invisible waves into destructive motion. At the deepest level of reality, resonance appears once again. Modern physics suggests that atoms themselves behave like tiny systems of vibration. Electrons occupy specific energy states that correspond to quantized oscillations. In this sense, resonance extends from the grand scale of architecture all the way down to the microscopic patterns of matter itself. Sound waves, like all waves, follow these same principles. When sound enters a confined space, it reflects from surfaces and travels back through the air. Under ordinary circumstances, these reflections scatter and fade, gradually losing energy. But when the dimensions of the space correspond to the wavelength of the sound, something different happens. The reflected waves begin to reinforce one another. Peaks align with peaks, troughs align with troughs, and the motion becomes organized rather than chaotic. The result is a phenomenon known as a standing wave. A standing wave appears almost frozen in space. Instead of moving steadily across the room, the wave oscillates in place, creating zones of intense vibration, separated by quieter regions where the air remains comparatively still. These patterns can be invisible to the eye, yet they shape the way sound is experienced within the room. In spaces where standing waves form, certain tones become unexpectedly powerful. A single note can swell dramatically, filling the air with a deep, sustained vibration. Other frequencies may vanish almost entirely, cancelled by the complex interplay of reflected waves. The room itself begins to act like a resonant instrument, favoring some sounds while suppressing others. Throughout history, architects have discovered ways to harness these effects. The theatres of ancient Greece provide one of the most remarkable examples. In large amphitheatres carved into hillsides, a performer standing at the center of the stage could speak in a normal voice and still be heard clearly by thousands of spectators seated hundreds of feet away. The carefully curved stone seating reflected and focused the sound waves, guiding them upward through the open air. In the jungles of Mesoamerica, the builders of certain stepped pyramids appear to have experimented with similar acoustic principles. When a person claps their hands at the base of some ancient temples, the echo returns with a surprising chirping quality, resembling the call of a sacred bird. Researchers believe this effect arises from the precise geometry of the stone steps, which scatter and recombine sound waves in complex ways. Across medieval Europe, cathedral builders discovered that vaulted ceilings and stone columns could transform the spoken voice into something almost otherworldly. Gregorian chants drifted through these cavernous interiors with a resonance that seemed to hover in the air like a living presence. The architecture did not merely house the sound, it shaped it, prolonged it, and magnified its emotional power. Yet the chambers within the Great Pyramid are something altogether different from these open and resonant spaces.
They are not vast halls designed for large gatherings or musical performances. Instead, they are enclosed cavities sealed deep inside a structure of extraordinary mass. Their walls are not carved from porous stone that absorbs sound, but from massive blocks of polished granite that reflect vibrations with unusual efficiency. Inside such a chamber, sound has nowhere to escape. Every wave strikes the stone surface and returns into the room. The reflections cross one another repeatedly, creating a dense network of interacting vibrations. If the dimensions of the chamber correspond to particular wavelengths, standing waves can emerge with remarkable clarity. In such conditions, the chamber begins to resemble the resonant cavity of a musical instrument. The stone walls function like the rigid boundaries of a drum or a bell, containing and shaping the movement of air within the space. Even a quiet tone can set the air in motion, and the
returning reflections may strengthen the vibration rather than allowing it to fade. This is what makes the granite chambers of the pyramid so unusual. They are not merely rooms carved within a monument. They are geometric volumes enclosed by dense reflective surfaces, capable of sustaining complex patterns of resonance. When a voice enters the space, the sound does not vanish quickly into silence. Instead, it interacts with the chamber's hidden geometry, forming waves that ripple and intersect through the air. In that moment, the structure itself becomes part of the acoustic event. The stone, the air, and the human voice form a single vibrating system. And within the silent heart of the pyramid, it is that invisible dance of waves that continues to provoke one of the most intriguing questions in the study of ancient architecture. Whether the builders understood that they were shaping not only stone and space, but vibration itself. What are your thoughts so far? Share with us in the comments section. Far within the immense body of the Great Pyramid of Giza lies a room that has fascinated explorers, engineers, and historians for centuries. Reaching it requires a journey through narrow stone corridors and steep passages that rise through the pyramid's interior. The air grows cooler as the sunlight of the desert fades behind layers of limestone blocks. Eventually, the path opens into the vast ascending corridor known as the Grand Gallery, a towering stone hallway whose angled walls climb high above the floor. At the end of that gallery, through a low entrance passage, one steps into a chamber unlike any other in the ancient world. This is the King's Chamber. The room appears deceptively simple at first glance. It is rectangular, austere, and almost entirely devoid of decoration. There are no carved hieroglyphs along the walls, no painted scenes of gods or kings, none of the ornate reliefs that decorate later Egyptian tombs. Instead, the chamber is defined by its geometry and the enormous stones from which it is built. Each wall, the floor beneath one's feet, and the ceiling overhead are formed from massive blocks of red granite, quarried far to the south along the Nile and transported here thousands of years ago. The dimensions of the room are precise and carefully proportioned. It measures approximately 10.5 meters in length, a little more than 5 meters across, and nearly 6 meters in height. These numbers may appear ordinary at first, but within the enclosed granite space they produce subtle physical effects that only become apparent when sound enters the chamber. Granite is not an ordinary building stone. It is one of the hardest natural materials available to ancient builders, composed of interlocking crystals of feldspar, mica, and quartz. Its density is remarkable, and its surface reflects energy with unusual efficiency. When struck, granite does not absorb vibration easily. Instead, it returns much of that energy back into its surroundings. This property has significant consequences for the way sound behaves inside the chamber. In many buildings, sound waves gradually weaken as they encounter surfaces that absorb and disperse their energy. Materials such as wood, fabric, or porous stone soften reflections, allowing sound to fade gently into silence. Granite behaves differently. Its smooth and rigid surfaces reflect sound waves strongly, sending them back across the room with little loss of energy. Because every surface of the King's Chamber is formed from this dense stone, sound has few opportunities to escape. A spoken word travels outward from the speaker, strikes the granite wall, and returns across the chamber. That returning wave meets new waves from the continuing voice, and the two interact in complex ways. Reflections cross one another repeatedly, forming a network of vibrations that circulate through the enclosed space. To the ear, the effect is subtle yet unmistakable. When a person speaks inside the chamber, the sound does not vanish quickly as it would in the open air. Instead, it seems to linger, filling the room with a faint resonance that persists after the voice has stopped. The granite walls give the impression of returning the sound again and again, like distant echoes that never quite disappear. Within such an environment, waves can combine to form stable patterns in the air. When reflections align with the natural frequencies determined by the chamber's dimensions, the vibrations reinforce each other rather than cancelling out. This process creates standing waves, zones in which sound energy oscillates in place rather than traveling freely across the room. Certain areas of the chamber experience stronger vibrations, while others remain comparatively quiet. Modern acoustic. Measurements conducted inside the chamber suggest that one of the dominant resonant frequencies lies near 110 Hz. This tone falls within the range of a deep human male voice, particularly the lower register produced during chanting or sustained vocal tones. When a sound near this frequency is introduced into the chamber, the reflected waves align with the room's geometry and reinforce one another, creating a subtle amplification of the vibration. The result is not an overwhelming echo, but a gentle strengthening of particular tones. A low hum can acquire surprising depth. A sustained note seems to hang in the air longer than expected, as though the room itself were quietly supporting the sound. Visitors sometimes describe the sensation as a faint pressure or vibration that can be felt as well as heard. This acoustic behavior arises from the interaction between geometry and material. The chamber's proportions determine which wavelengths of sound fit naturally within its boundaries. Meanwhile, the granite surfaces ensure that those waves are reflected rather than absorbed, allowing them to persist long enough for resonance to emerge. The space, therefore, functions as a resonant cavity, an enclosed volume that favors certain frequencies while discouraging others. Resonant cavities are common in the modern world, though they are usually associated with scientific instruments rather than ancient architecture. In laboratories and engineering systems, such cavities are used to amplify waves, stabilize oscillations, and confine energy within controlled environments. Musical instruments rely on similar principles. The body of a violin or the chamber of a flute allows air vibrations to resonate in ways that strengthen the sound. Within the king's chamber, the same physical laws operate, but on a scale carved from stone rather than wood or metal. The granite blocks contain the air, guiding and reflecting its vibrations. The chamber becomes not merely a container of sound, but a participant in its behavior. Another detail adds to the mystery. Granite is rich in quartz crystals, a mineral known for its ability to respond to mechanical stress. When subjected to pressure or vibration, quartz can generate tiny electrical charges through the phenomenon known as the piezoelectric effect. In modern electronics, this property allows quartz crystals to serve as precise oscillators, maintaining stable frequencies in clocks and communication devices. Inside the pyramid, the vibrations produced by sound are extremely small, and any electrical effects within the granite would be correspondingly minute. Yet the presence of quartz adds an additional layer of complexity to the chamber's physical character. Sound waves traveling through the air may also produce microscopic vibrations within the stone itself, subtly linking the movement of air and rock within the chamber. Whether these properties were intentionally exploited by the pyramid's builders remains uncertain. Archaeological evidence does not provide clear answers about their acoustic intentions. What is undeniable, however, is the remarkable precision with which the chamber was constructed. Each granite block was cut, transported, and placed with extraordinary care, forming a space whose geometry has remained stable for thousands of years.
Standing inside the chamber today, one becomes aware of how unusual this environment truly is. A quiet voice resonates gently through the granite room, as though guided by invisible boundaries. The sound seems to circulate within the chamber before gradually fading into silence. It is a subtle phenomenon, easily overlooked by someone expecting dramatic echoes or booming reverberations. Yet the more closely one listens, the more apparent the chamber's acoustic character becomes. The stone does not merely contain the sound, it shapes it. And within that shaping lies a question that continues to echo through the study of the pyramid itself. Was the alignment of geometry, granite, and resonance simply an accidental consequence of construction? Or did the builders understand that by arranging stone with such precision, they were also shaping the hidden vibrations that move through air, stone, and human voice alike? Within the granite stillness of the king's chamber, there is an object that has puzzled observers for centuries. It sits quietly near the western wall of the chamber, carved from a single block of red granite. Its form is simple and stark, a rectangular stone box with straight edges and an open top. Archaeologists have long referred to it as a sarcophagus, assuming it was intended to contain the body of a king. Yet even among scholars there has always been something slightly unusual about it. The object is larger than most Egyptian sarcophagi and strikingly plain. Unlike the ornate burial coffins found in later tombs throughout Egypt, this granite box carries no inscriptions, no hieroglyphic prayers, and no carved scenes of gods guiding the dead through the afterlife. Its surfaces are smooth and precise, almost austere in their simplicity. The interior cavity has been cut with remarkable accuracy, suggesting a high degree of craftsmanship and careful measurement. What makes the object even more intriguing is the material from which it is made.
That such interactions might occur inside the chamber raises an intriguing question about the intentions of the ancient builders. If the granite box were placed within the chamber solely as a burial container, its acoustic behavior would be little more than a curious side effect of its material and shape. But if the designers of the chamber understood something about resonance, the presence of the box might serve another purpose entirely. In that case, the object would not simply occupy the room, it would participate in its acoustic life, responding to sound waves that move through the chamber and contributing its own faint vibrations to the environment. Ancient Egyptian religious traditions placed great emphasis on spoken words, chants, and ritual recitations. Sacred utterances were believed to possess transformative power, shaping both the visible world and the unseen realms beyond it. In temples across Egypt, priests performed ceremonies accompanied by rhythmic chanting and musical instruments designed to produce resonant tones. If such practices were ever conducted within the hidden chambers of the pyramid, the presence of a resonant granite object could subtly influence the acoustic experience of those who stood within the room. The low frequencies of human voices might stimulate vibrations in both the chamber and the box, allowing the sound to linger and deepen as it circulated through the enclosed space. Whether this effect was intentional remains uncertain. Archaeologists have long debated the true function of the chamber and its contents. No inscriptions survive to explain how the space was meant to be used, and the absence of typical burial decorations leaves room for speculation. What remains undeniable is the presence of a massive granite object that behaves in a way few would expect from a stone container. Strike it gently, and it answers with a tone. Speak within the chamber, and the air carries the sound in patterns shaped by geometry and stone. In that quiet granite room, the boundary between architecture and acoustics begins to blur. The chamber holds the sound, the walls return it, and the stone box itself seems capable of joining the vibration, which leads to a question that has echoed through centuries of exploration and study. Was the pyramid built merely as a resting place for the body of a king, or was it designed in some deeper sense to contain and shape the mysterious power of sound itself? What do you think about this? Before reaching the granite stillness of the king's chamber, every traveler inside the Great Pyramid of Giza must pass through a corridor that is among the most astonishing architectural spaces ever created in the ancient world. This passage is known as the Grand Gallery, and from the moment one enters it, the atmosphere of the pyramid changes in a way that is difficult to describe. The gallery is not a narrow tunnel like the passages that lead to it. Instead, it opens upward into a towering stone corridor that rises dramatically above the visitor's head. The floor slopes upward at a steady angle, guiding the path deeper into the pyramid. Along its length, the corridor stretches nearly 47 meters, while the ceiling climbs to a height of about 8.5 meters. The proportions feel both monumental and strangely enclosed, as though the space were guiding movement with deliberate intention. The walls of the gallery are built in a distinctive style known as corbelling. Rather than rising vertically, each layer of stone projects slightly inward over the layer beneath it. With every course of blocks, the walls narrow gradually toward the top, creating a stepped vault that encloses the corridor like the interior of a stone pyramid within the pyramid itself. The result is a tall triangular space, rigid and geometric, composed entirely of carefully fitted limestone blocks. The precision of this construction is remarkable. Each stone is positioned so that the inward steps form a symmetrical pattern along both sides of the corridor. The surfaces are smooth and sharply defined, reflecting the extraordinary skill of the builders who assembled them thousands of years ago. Yet the visual symmetry of the gallery is only part of its significance. The shape of this corridor also has consequences for the way sound behaves within it. Sound waves move through the air in expanding patterns, spreading outward from their source in all directions. In open environments, those waves dissipate gradually, losing energy as they travel. But in enclosed passages, the surrounding walls guide the movement of the waves, reflecting them repeatedly as they move through the space. The geometry of the corridor determines how those reflections interact, sometimes strengthening certain frequencies and suppressing others. The tall, narrowing form of the Grand Gallery creates conditions similar to those found in a structure known in physics as a waveguide. A waveguide is a channel designed to direct waves, whether sound waves or electromagnetic waves, along a specific path. In modern technology, such structures appear in communication systems, microwave transmitters, and scientific instruments that require energy to be confined and guided with precision. Although the builders of the pyramid could not have described their work in those terms, the geometry of the gallery produces a similar effect. The steep walls and long corridor form a channel through which sound can travel with surprising efficiency. When a noise is produced within the gallery, the reflections from the angled stone surfaces tend to direct the sound along the length of the passage rather than allowing it to disperse widely. Visitors who have stood within this corridor often remark upon the unusual behavior of echoes. A single sound can travel upward through the gallery, bouncing from one stone surface to another as it moves along the passage. Because the corridor is so long and the surfaces are so hard, these reflections can persist longer than expected, creating rolling echoes that seem to move through the pyramid like distant thunder. Historical accounts hint at just how dramatic these effects can be. During the French expedition to Egypt at the end of the 18th century, soldiers exploring the interior of the pyramid reportedly discharged pistols within the gallery. The resulting echoes were said to reverberate through the stone corridors with astonishing force, producing a deep and prolonged roar that echoed through the interior passages. Such stories may contain elements of exaggeration, yet they illustrate an important point. The gallery is not acoustically neutral. Its shape encourages sound waves to travel through it with unusual persistence, reflecting repeatedly from the angled walls and sloping floor. The experience of standing within the corridor can feel almost theatrical, as though the space were amplifying every sound that occurs inside it. Modern acoustic experiments conducted within similar architectural environments suggest that long corridors with hard reflective surfaces can indeed guide sound along their length. The corbelled ceiling of the gallery adds another layer of complexity to this behavior. Each projecting layer of stone acts as a surface that can scatter and redirect sound waves, creating multiple paths for reflections to travel. Because the gallery rises toward the chamber above it, these reflections naturally move upward along the corridor. Sound introduced at the lower end of the passage can travel toward the upper levels, gradually losing energy, but continuing to echo between the walls as it climbs. This observation leads to a fascinating possibility. The gallery does not simply connect different parts of the pyramid. It may also serve as an acoustic conduit, guiding sound through the interior of the structure. The reflections produced by its corbelled walls could carry vibrations toward the granite chambers beyond, allowing sound to travel through the pyramid in ways that would be impossible in open air. If that interpretation holds even a partial truth, the gallery could influence the acoustic environment of the chamber it leads to. Sounds produced within the corridor might interact with the resonant properties of the granite room above, introducing additional vibrations into the enclosed space. In such a scenario, the corridor and the chamber would form two elements of a larger acoustic system connected by geometry and stone. Whether this effect was deliberately designed or merely an unintended consequence of architecture remains uncertain. The builders of the pyramid left no written description explaining the purpose of the gallery. Archaeologists have proposed many possible functions for the corridor, ranging from construction access to ceremonial pathways. Yet its scale and precision suggest that it held an importance beyond simple utility. Standing within the gallery today, one becomes aware of how powerfully the architecture shapes the experience of sound. A quiet footstep echoes along the stone floor. A spoken word drifts upward through the towering corridor. Even a small noise can travel farther than expected, carried along by the angled walls that guide the reflections toward the upper reaches of the pyramid. The corridor feels less like a tunnel and more like a channel carved through stone for invisible waves. Every surface participates in the movement of sound, redirecting vibrations through the length of the gallery, and as those waves travel upward toward the granite chamber. Beyond, another question quietly emerges. Was this immense stone corridor constructed merely as a passage leading to the chamber of a king? Or could its towering walls and narrowing ceiling also have been shaping something far less visible, guiding the hidden currents of sound toward the resonant heart of the pyramid itself? Deeper within the interior of the Great Pyramid of Giza lies another room that has long stirred curiosity among explorers and scholars. It sits along the central axis of the structure, reached by a horizontal passage branching away from the ascending corridors. Compared with the towering space above, the room feels quieter and more intimate, almost hidden within the pyramid's immense body. Today it is known as the Queen's Chamber, though there is no clear historical evidence that any queen was ever intended to rest here. The chamber's proportions are modest compared with the granite room higher in the pyramid. Its floor is rectangular and its walls rise to meet in a pointed ceiling, forming a steep triangular vault that resembles the interior of a stone tent. The geometry is striking, but the most important difference lies in the material itself. Unlike the upper chamber, which is built from heavy red granite blocks, this room is carved primarily from limestone. Limestone is the same pale stone that forms the bulk of the pyramid's outer structure. It is softer than granite and far easier to shape with tools. Ancient builders used it extensively because it could be quarried and cut in large quantities with comparatively less effort. Yet from an acoustic perspective, limestone behaves very differently from the crystalline granite above. When sound waves encounter limestone, a portion of their energy is absorbed into the stone rather than reflected entirely back into the air. The porous microstructure of limestone allows vibrations to dissipate more readily, transforming sound energy into tiny mechanical motions within the rock itself. The result is a subtle dampening effect that softens echoes and reduces the persistence of reflected sound. Inside the Queen's Chamber, this difference becomes noticeable. A spoken word does not travel with the same lingering resonance that one experiences within the granite chamber above. Instead, the sound fades more quickly, absorbed by the limestone surfaces that surround the room. The echoes are still present, but they are gentler and less pronounced, producing an acoustic environment that feels quieter and more subdued. The shape of the ceiling contributes further to this effect. Rather than forming a flat stone roof, the chamber's walls rise inward until they meet in a pointed arch at the top. This triangular configuration changes the way sound waves move through the space. When vibrations strike the angled surfaces, they are redirected downward and outward in complex patterns, scattering the reflections rather than allowing them to travel repeatedly along the same paths. Such scattering tends to reduce the formation of strong standing waves. Instead of reinforcing specific frequencies, the reflections spread through the chamber in multiple directions, dissipating energy more quickly. The result is an acoustic character that feels softer and more diffused than the concentrated resonance found in the granite room above. Standing within the chamber, one senses this difference almost immediately. Voices carry clearly enough, yet they lack the deep reverberant quality that fills the upper chamber. The air feels still and calm, as though the room itself were absorbing the vibrations rather than returning them with force. The effect can feel almost contemplative, encouraging quiet speech and measured movement. The contrast between the two chambers raises an intriguing question about the intentions of the pyramid's builders. The difference in acoustic behavior is not subtle. Granite reflects sound strongly and sustains resonance, while limestone softens and dampens vibrations. By choosing these materials for different rooms within the same structure, the builders created two distinct sonic environments. The presence of a pointed limestone roof further emphasizes this contrast. Such architectural forms were often used in ancient construction to distribute weight safely, preventing the heavy stones above from collapsing into the chamber below. Yet the design also influences how waves move through the room, altering the pattern of reflections in ways that shape the acoustic experience. Whether these differences were purely structural or deliberately chosen for their acoustic effects remains a subject of debate. From a practical standpoint, limestone would have been easier to carve into the triangular ceiling required for the chamber. Granite, by contrast, is extremely difficult to shape and would have demanded far greater labor to achieve the same form. Yet the builders clearly demonstrated their ability to transport and position granite blocks elsewhere within the pyramid. The upper chamber proves that they possessed both the resources and the expertise to construct large granite spaces when they wished to do so. This makes the choice of limestone here particularly interesting. If the builders understood how different materials influence sound, they may have been shaping the pyramid's interior environment with subtle intention. One chamber could sustain deep, resonant tones, while another would soften and absorb them. The two rooms might represent contrasting acoustic worlds within the same monument, each offering a different experience of voice and vibration. Ancient Egyptian religious practices placed great importance on spoken words, ritual recitations, and sacred chants. In temple ceremonies, priests often performed invocations whose rhythms and tones were believed to carry spiritual significance. If such practices were ever associated with the hidden chambers of the pyramid, the acoustic character of each room could influence how those sounds were experienced. In a resonant granite chamber, a low chant might expand through the air, strengthened by reflections that allow the tone to linger. In a quieter limestone chamber, the same voice might feel more intimate, its echoes softened by the absorbing walls. The two spaces would shape the emotional atmosphere of sound in entirely different ways. Another intriguing feature deepens the mystery. The Queen's Chamber contains narrow shafts that extend upward through the body of the pyramid, though they do not open to the exterior as the shafts in the upper chamber do. Their purpose remains uncertain. Some scholars believe they were symbolic pathways aligned with celestial bodies, while others suggest they served practical functions during construction. From an acoustic perspective, narrow passages can also influence how vibrations move through enclosed spaces. Small openings can allow sound to travel along confined channels, guiding waves away from their source or allowing faint echoes to return from distant cavities within the structure. Whether the builders considered such possibilities is impossible to say with certainty. What can be observed is the careful interplay of geometry, material, and enclosed space within the pyramid's interior. Each chamber possesses its own character, shaped by the stones that define its walls and the angles that guide its reflections. Within the Queen's Chamber, the limestone absorbs the restless echoes that dominate the granite chamber above. Sound fades more gently here, leaving behind a quiet that feels deliberate rather than accidental. And that quiet invites a lingering thought. If the architects of the pyramid truly understood how stone and geometry influence the behavior of sound, then these chambers may represent more than structural solutions or burial spaces. They may be carefully tuned environments, each shaped to produce a different relationship between human voice, vibrating air, and the silent stone that surrounds it. What are your thoughts about this? Share with us in the comments section. Long before modern science began to measure vibration and frequency, the civilizations of the ancient world understood that sound possessed an unusual power. Nowhere was this more evident than in the religious traditions of ancient Egypt. Their temples were not silent places devoted only to visual symbolism. They were environments filled with rhythm, chant, and sacred sound. Within those stone sanctuaries, priests performed rituals in which the human voice, musical instruments, and repeated invocations were believed to bridge the distance between the earthly world and the realm of the gods. Across Egypt, temple ceremonies followed carefully structured patterns. Priests chanted hymns in measured tones that echoed through vast halls lined with towering columns. The rhythms of ritual drums marked the passage of sacred time, while metal instruments known as sistrums produced shimmering pulses of sound that rippled through the air. These sounds were not merely decorative elements of ceremony. They were understood as forces capable of shaping spiritual reality. The sistrum in particular held deep symbolic meaning. When shaken, its metal rods struck against small discs, producing a bright and vibrating rattle. The sound was associated with divine energy, particularly in the worship of the goddess Hathor. Temple reliefs show priests and priestesses lifting these instruments during rituals, their movements accompanied by waves of rhythmic sound believed to awaken or appease the gods. Chanting also played a central role in Egyptian religious practice. Sacred hymns were recited with precise intonation, sometimes repeated again and again as part of ceremonial rites. The voice itself was treated as a vessel of power. In Egyptian belief, words were not merely symbolic expressions, but active forces capable of shaping events. A properly spoken invocation could invoke protection, summon divine attention, or guide the soul through the hidden landscapes of the afterlife. This concept of creative speech appears in ancient Egyptian cosmology as well. One of the most important deities associated with creation was Ptah. According to theological texts from Memphis, Ptah brought the universe into existence through thought and speech. In this tradition, the god conceived the world within his mind and then spoke it into being. Creation itself emerged from vibration, the spoken word transforming invisible intention into reality. Such beliefs reveal how deeply sound was woven into the Egyptian understanding of the universe. To them, vibration was not merely a physical phenomenon, but a sacred principle. The spoken voice carried spiritual authority, capable of shaping both the visible world and the unseen realms beyond human perception. Within this cultural context, the hidden chambers of the Great Pyramid of Giza invite a different kind of interpretation. If the ancient Egyptians regarded sound as a powerful medium connecting the human and divine, then the acoustic properties of the pyramid's interior spaces become especially intriguing. The granite chamber deep within the structure behaves in ways that encourage low-frequency resonance. When a voice produces a sustained tone, the reflections from the dense stone walls allow that vibration to linger within the room. A deep chant can fill the space with subtle reverberations that move through the air and across the surfaces of the stone itself. Such conditions could amplify the sensory experience of ritual sound. A low chant repeated within the chamber might create a steady wave of vibration, felt not only through the ears, but also through the body. Humans are highly sensitive to low-frequency sound. At certain levels, such vibrations can produce sensations of pressure or movement that are perceived physically rather than purely audibly. Modern research into acoustics and psychology suggests that sustained tones in enclosed spaces can influence human perception in surprising ways. Repetitive sounds, particularly those with strong resonance, can alter a person's sense of time and spatial awareness. The mind begins to focus on the rhythm and vibration, sometimes entering a deeply meditative state. In many cultures around the world, chanting and rhythmic sound have long been used as tools for spiritual transformation. Monks in Tibetan monasteries chant deep harmonic tones that fill temple halls with vibrating sound. Indigenous rituals in various regions employ drums and vocal repetition to guide participants into altered states of consciousness. These practices rely on the interaction between sound, space, and human perception. Within the granite chamber of the pyramid, similar effects might emerge naturally from the interaction between voice and architecture. A group of voices chanting in unison could create overlapping waves of sound that resonate within the room. The reflections from the stone walls would reinforce those vibrations, surrounding participants with a continuous field of sound. The experience could be both physical and psychological. The body might sense faint vibrations passing through the air, while the mind becomes absorbed in the rhythm of the chant. Over time, such an environment could produce a powerful sense of immersion, as though the boundaries between voice, space, and listener had begun to dissolve. This possibility has led some researchers and historians to wonder whether the pyramid's internal chambers might have served ritual purposes rather than purely funerary ones. The idea remains speculative, yet it draws attention to the unusual design of the space. The chamber is sealed deep within the pyramid, isolated from the outside world, and constructed from materials that strongly influence sound behavior. If rituals involving chanting or sacred recitation were ever performed there, the environment would magnify their acoustic impact. The chamber would not simply contain the sound, it would participate in it, shaping and sustaining the vibration as it moved through the space. In ancient Egyptian tradition, initiation rituals were sometimes associated with profound symbolic journeys. These ceremonies could involve darkness, silence, and carefully orchestrated sensory experiences designed to transform the participants' understanding of life, death, and the cosmos. The initiate might pass through a series of chambers or corridors, each representing a stage in a spiritual passage. The internal layout of the pyramid, with its ascending corridors, towering gallery, and hidden chambers, has occasionally inspired comparisons to such symbolic journeys. Though no direct evidence confirms that initiation rites took place within the structure, the architectural sequence certainly creates a sense of progression from the outer world into deeper and more secluded spaces. Within that context, the resonant granite chamber could represent a culmination of sensory experience. After passing through dark corridors and silent passages, a participant might encounter a space where the human voice suddenly becomes amplified and sustained by the surrounding stone. The effect could feel transformative, as though the chamber itself were responding to the presence of sound. Whether this interpretation reflects historical reality remains uncertain. The pyramid was constructed during a period when royal tombs were central to Egyptian religious life, and many scholars continue to view the chambers primarily as elements of a burial monument. Yet the cultural importance of sacred sound cannot be ignored. Egyptian religion consistently emphasized the creative and transformative power of speech and vibration. Their rituals relied heavily on chanting, rhythmic instruments, and carefully spoken invocations. When these traditions are considered alongside the acoustic characteristics of the pyramid's interior chambers, a curious possibility emerges. The builders may have created spaces where sound behaved in ways that intensified human experience, allowing voices to resonate within stone structures designed with remarkable precision. Standing within such a chamber, surrounded by granite that reflects every vibration, the voice becomes something more than a simple sound. It becomes a presence that fills the room, lingering in the air long after the words themselves have faded. And in that quiet resonance, one cannot help but wonder whether the pyramid's hidden spaces were meant only to house the body of a king, or whether they once echoed with the voices of those who believed that sound itself could open a path between the human world and the divine. In the modern era, the mystery of the pyramid's internal acoustics has shifted from speculation to systematic investigation. Over the past several decades, teams of acoustic engineers and physicists have gained access to the interior of the Great Pyramid of Giza, equipped with sensitive instruments capable of measuring the behavior of sound with unprecedented precision. Their work has allowed us to move beyond anecdotal accounts of whispering walls and resonant hums, providing empirical data that reveals the extraordinary acoustic properties of these ancient chambers. Scientists begin by measuring reverberation times, the duration that sound persists in a room after the source stops. In most conventional buildings, sound fades within seconds. Yet inside the king's chamber, reverberation is not only prolonged but selective. Certain low-frequency tones linger significantly longer than higher-pitched sounds, creating an unusual emphasis on frequencies that correspond to the human voice's lower register. A deep vocalization, such as a sustained chant or hum, can resonate within the chamber far longer than in any ordinary enclosed space of similar size. Engineers also map frequency amplification across the chamber. By introducing controlled tones at varying pitches, they have found that some frequencies are naturally amplified, rising in volume by several decibels without any electronic intervention. These amplified tones correspond remarkably closely with the natural resonance frequencies predicted for a cavity of the chamber's dimensions, confirming that the space behaves like a resonant cavity in the strictest physical sense. The combination of granite walls, precise geometry, and interior volume forms an environment where certain vibrations are reinforced while others are suppressed. Echo patterns within the chamber further illustrate the sophistication of its acoustic properties. Sound introduced from one corner does not scatter chaotically. Rather, it follows predictable pathways, reflecting off walls and ceiling in repeating sequences that overlap and interact. Engineers using high-resolution sensors have traced these reflections, discovering nodes of constructive interference where vibrations converge, producing zones of enhanced amplitude. The resulting sonic landscape is far from uniform. Some areas of the chamber amplify sound dramatically, while others remain unusually quiet, creating an intricate internal sound map that is spatially complex and surprisingly consistent with the chamber's architectural symmetry. Computer simulations have expanded understanding even further. By modeling the chamber's geometry and material properties, researchers can recreate how waves propagate through the space. These simulations confirm observations made during physical experiments. The granite walls efficiently reflect sound, and the room's proportions inherently favor certain low-frequency standing waves. More intriguingly, the simulations suggest that the pyramid's overall internal layout, the ascending corridors, the grand gallery, and the chambers, can function collectively as a waveguide system. Vibrations introduced at one location can propagate along specific paths, converging at the king's chamber in a manner that reinforces resonance. In effect, the structure behaves as a coherent acoustic system rather than a collection of isolated spaces. The implications of these findings are profound. For one, they suggest that the ancient builders may have had some understanding, even if implicit, of how enclosed stone spaces could shape sound. Whether they intentionally designed the chambers to favor certain frequencies remains a matter of speculation, yet the alignment of geometry, material, and scale produces effects that even modern engineers find remarkable. The resonance patterns within the king's chamber could have been ideal for enhancing ritual chants, creating a physical sensation of vibration that was felt as much as heard. Participants in such rituals may have experienced a combination of auditory amplification and tactile feedback, producing a profound psychological and sensory effect. Perhaps most surprising are discoveries emerging from simulations beyond sound waves alone. Computational studies indicate that the pyramid's internal structure might interact with other forms of energy, notably electromagnetic waves. Researchers modeled how the shape and orientation of the chambers, the conductivity of the granite, and the presence of voids and corridors could affect energy propagation. While the primary focus was acoustic behavior, the simulations revealed patterns suggesting that the same architecture could influence certain electromagnetic phenomena. Granite contains quartz crystals, which are piezoelectric. Under mechanical stress, these crystals can produce small electrical charges, and conversely, electric fields can induce vibration in the crystal lattice. In principle, vibrations from sound could generate microscopic electromagnetic fluctuations within the stone itself. When combined with the precise geometry of the pyramid, this effect raises the possibility, still highly speculative, that the structure could modulate energy in ways that extend beyond audible sound. While no direct evidence yet confirms any practical effect, the intersection of acoustics and piezoelectricity within the pyramid opens a tantalizing window into the complex physics that may be at play. Controlled experiments have also tested the response of the chamber to a range of sound sources. Engineers have used speakers to introduce pure tones, sweeping through frequencies from tens of hertz up to several kilohertz. In every case, the results confirm that the chamber is highly selective. Some frequencies resonate, some fade quickly, and others appear to excite subtle vibrations in the walls themselves. Measurements using accelerometers attached to the granite blocks reveal that the stone responds dynamically, moving imperceptibly in response to sound waves. These vibrations are extremely small, on the order of microns, but they confirm that the chamber's mass is not entirely inert. The stone itself participates in the acoustic field, reinforcing the idea that the space behaves as a living resonant system. Beyond physical measurements, these experiments have philosophical implications as well. Sound is ordinarily ephemeral, dissipating quickly once released. Yet within this 4,500-year-old structure, vibrations persist, circulate, and interact with stone in ways that suggest a deliberate sensitivity to energy. The pyramid, it seems, is not merely a static monument of stone. It is a space capable of interacting with the world in subtle and dynamic ways. Human voice, when introduced into the right frequencies, becomes entwined with the architecture itself. Sound is not just experienced, it is transformed. Some researchers have even begun exploring how these properties could affect perception. Low-frequency resonance, such as that naturally amplified in the king's chamber, can influence human physiology. Studies in psychoacoustics show that frequencies below 120 Hz can produce sensations of vibration felt in the body, affect heart rate, and even alter cognitive states. When combined with the psychological weight of being inside an immense ancient stone structure, these vibrations could have created an experience of awe, trance, or altered consciousness, an immersive encounter between human perception and architectural design. The combination of empirical observation and computational modeling presents a striking picture. The pyramid is more than a tomb. Its chambers form a complex acoustic system capable of amplifying specific frequencies, shaping echo patterns, and subtly engaging with the physical properties of its stone. In the process, the pyramid mediates the interaction between human presence and the material environment, creating conditions that could be described as both physical and sensory. And yet, the simulations hint at something still more enigmatic. if the architecture influences electromagnetic behavior as well as sound, the structure may interact with forms of energy beyond human perception. While the evidence remains speculative, the possibility adds another layer to the enduring mystery of the Great Pyramid. For modern scientists, these discoveries provoke questions about the intentions of the builders and the sophistication of their understanding. Did the ancient Egyptians possess knowledge of resonance, vibration, and the subtle properties of stone that allowed them to design spaces capable of shaping human experience so profoundly? Or are these phenomena serendipitous consequences of structural necessity and material choice? Either way, the controlled experiments conducted inside the pyramid have transformed our understanding of this ancient wonder. No longer can it be regarded simply as a tomb or monument. It is a carefully constructed environment in which geometry, material, and energy interact. Sound lingers where it should not. Vibrations propagate where they might not be expected. The chamber itself responds to human presence in ways that continue to defy complete explanation. And as engineers and physicists continue to probe these ancient spaces, one thought remains undeniable. The Great Pyramid is not merely a passive artifact of history. It is a resonant system, alive in its own way, a bridge between stone, sound, and the enduring curiosity of humanity. What are your thoughts about this? Don't forget to share it and subscribe to our channel for more content. In 2018, a team of physicists explored electromagnetic waves of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Using advanced computational modeling and high-resolution simulations, they explored how the pyramid's unique geometry might interact with these waves, revealing a phenomenon that had previously been imagined only in speculative thought. The team approached the pyramid as an enormous resonant cavity, similar in concept to a radio antenna or a laboratory waveguide. They modeled the structure's dimensions with precise measurements of the outer casing, internal chambers, corridors, and voids. By simulating radio frequency waves entering the pyramid from different angles, they sought to observe how these waves would propagate, reflect, and concentrate within the interior. The simulations revealed patterns that were at once subtle and extraordinary. What emerged was a clear indication that the pyramid's shape could focus energy into specific internal spaces. Waves introduced at the base of the structure or from the surrounding environment did not scatter randomly. Instead, the complex interplay of angled faces, narrow passages, and chamber volumes caused the waves to converge, creating regions of enhanced electromagnetic intensity. These focal points often coincided with the locations of the king's chamber and other internal cavities, suggesting that the architecture was capable of concentrating energy into select spaces within the pyramid. This phenomenon relates to a principle known in physics as electromagnetic resonance. In modern engineering, resonance occurs when the natural frequency of a system aligns with the frequency of incoming waves. Energy is efficiently absorbed and reinforced, leading to amplified effects. In the case of the pyramid, the simulations suggested that its geometry could act as a resonant structure, selectively enhancing the intensity of waves within certain regions. In essence, the pyramid was behaving as more than just a passive block of stone. It was interacting dynamically with electromagnetic energy, guiding and concentrating it within its interior. Although the study focused primarily on radio wavelengths, the implications are striking. The same principles that allow radio antennas to transmit and receive signals may also apply to the pyramid, albeit in a natural architectural form. The researchers emphasize that these effects do not imply mystical properties, but rather a complex interaction between geometry, material properties, and wave physics. Granite, limestone, and other stones all possess measurable electrical characteristics, and their arrangement within a resonant structure can influence how electromagnetic energy behaves. One of the most fascinating aspects of the study was the convergence between acoustic and electromagnetic resonance. The same chambers that amplify sound also appear to be focal points for wave energy. The king's chamber, constructed of dense granite, resonates with human vocal frequencies and simultaneously aligns with regions of concentrated electromagnetic energy in the simulations. This overlap suggests that the pyramid's architecture was not merely functional in a structural sense, but may have been tuned to interact with multiple forms of wave phenomena simultaneously. The notion that a 4,500-year-old structure could interact with both sound and electromagnetic waves challenges conventional assumptions about ancient engineering. While we often attribute the pyramid's construction to logistical skill, labor management, and symbolic ambition, these findings introduce the possibility that the builders also understood, at least intuitively, the principles of resonance. Whether through trial and error, inherited architectural knowledge, or observation of natural vibrations, they created a structure that, in modern terms, behaves like a sophisticated waveguide system. The simulations also revealed how precise orientation contributes to the effect. The pyramid is aligned almost perfectly with the cardinal points of the compass, and its faces slope at an angle of roughly 51 degrees. These precise alignments influence how waves, whether acoustic or electromagnetic, interact with the structure. Small deviations in angle or position alter the way energy converges within the interior, suggesting that the builders may have been highly intentional in their choice of orientation and slope. Moreover, the study considered the potential influence of internal corridors and voids. The Grand Gallery, the ascending passage, and smaller chambers all appear to play a role in guiding energy toward the central spaces. The structure functions not as a single homogeneous block, but as a network of resonant channels and cavities. Each component contributes to the overall behavior of the system, reinforcing the idea that the pyramid operates as an integrated resonant environment rather than a collection of isolated rooms. The researchers were careful to frame their findings within the bounds of physics, noting that there is no evidence that the pyramid was intended to transmit radio signals or generate electromagnetic energy intentionally, yet the geometric and material properties revealed by the simulations are remarkable. In contemporary engineering, creating a resonant structure capable of focusing energy with this level of precision requires careful calculation, adjustment, and measurement. That such effects emerge naturally from an ancient monument continues to astonish both engineers and historians. The dual interaction with acoustic and electromagnetic waves is particularly intriguing. Human perception is attuned to sound, allowing vibrations to be felt physically and psychologically. Electromagnetic waves, while invisible, interact with matter in ways that are measurable and potentially significant. The overlap between these two domains suggests that the pyramid's chambers may have created a complex environment where multiple forms of wave energy coexisted and interacted. For participants in ancient rituals, this could have produced profound sensory effects, blending auditory resonance with subtle physical phenomena. From a scientific perspective, the 2018 study underscores the importance of interdisciplinary research. By combining physics, engineering, computational modeling, and archaeology, the team was able to investigate phenomena that neither discipline could fully explain alone. The results invite us to reconsider how we evaluate ancient architecture, not simply as a historical artifact or funerary monument, but as a physical system capable of interacting dynamically with its environment. Ultimately, the study raises fundamental questions about the relationship between humans, architecture, and energy. The Great Pyramid emerges not merely as a tomb or symbolic statement, but as a carefully structured environment in which geometry, material, and spatial arrangement interact with waves of all kinds. It is a testament to the ingenuity of its builders and the enduring power of resonance, both audible and invisible. What do you think about this research? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Within the walls of the Great Pyramid of Giza, especially the upper chambers constructed of massive granite blocks, lies a material whose significance extends far beyond its sheer mass or durability. That material is quartz, a crystalline mineral that occurs naturally within the granite, often in high concentrations. Quartz is more than a component of stone. It is a substance with unusual physical properties that have made it indispensable in modern technology, from the precise timing mechanisms in watches to the radio transmitters that carry signals across continents. Its presence in the pyramid invites a subtle but profound question. Could the very stone itself have interacted with sound and vibration in ways that generate energy? Quartz is renowned for a property known as piezoelectricity. When mechanical stress is applied to the crystal, through pressure, vibration, or strain, the atomic structure of quartz rearranges slightly. This microscopic shift creates an electrical charge across the crystal surfaces. Conversely, applying an electrical field to quartz can induce mechanical movement, causing the crystal to vibrate. In contemporary engineering, these properties are exploited in countless devices. Quartz crystals act as oscillators in radios and computers, keeping time in watches, stabilizing electronic circuits, and even serving in highly sensitive sensors. The key insight is that quartz translates motion into electrical energy and vice versa in a remarkably precise manner. Inside the granite chambers of the pyramid, natural mechanical stresses occur continuously. The blocks themselves are under tremendous weight, each layer pressing against those below. Over millennia, subtle shifts in the bedrock and settling of the structure maintain a state of internal pressure. Beyond these static forces, dynamic forces are introduced whenever sound waves reverberate through the chambers. A human voice, a low chant, or even distant vibrations can propagate through the dense granite, imparting small but measurable stresses on the crystal lattice of the quartz contained within the stone. Acoustic experiments demonstrate that the granite chambers amplify low-frequency vibrations. In the King's Chamber, for instance, sustained tones between roughly 100 and 120 Hz produce standing waves that circulate throughout the space. As these waves move through the stone, they exert tiny, repeated forces on the mineral grains embedded within the granite. While each individual vibration may be minuscule, the cumulative effect over time, especially if multiple voices or instruments were present during ritualized chanting, could conceivably induce small electrical potentials via the piezoelectric effect. Scientists are cautious when discussing this possibility. There is no empirical evidence to show that ancient Egyptians intended or harnessed this effect, and the electrical charges produced by natural vibration in granite would be extremely small, yet the physics is straightforward. A piezoelectric crystal under stress generates charge. Within a chamber filled with carefully fitted granite blocks, a dense concentration of quartz could theoretically translate acoustic energy into electric fluctuations, however minor. This concept gains further intrigue when considered alongside the 2018 simulations showing the pyramid's potential interaction with electromagnetic waves. If sound waves induce piezoelectric charges within the granite, and the architecture can guide energy along specific paths, then the building could form a subtle system in which mechanical vibrations influence electromagnetic fields. These would be extremely weak effects, imperceptible to the human senses, yet they underscore an extraordinary interplay between material, geometry, and energy that modern technology exploits consciously. Quartz is not unique to the pyramid. It is abundant in many granitic formations worldwide. Yet the combination of high concentrations within massive blocks, precisely cut and arranged to create large enclosed cavities, produces a scale of piezoelectric potential not commonly encountered. In laboratory conditions, even small crystals can produce measurable currents when subjected to vibration. Multiply this across dozens of enormous granite blocks, each embedded with quartz, and the theoretical implications begin to feel more than trivial. The potential interactions are not limited to electrical phenomena alone. Piezoelectricity allows a feedback loop. Mechanical vibration produces electric charge, and electric fields can in turn produce mechanical motion in the crystal lattice. Within a resonant chamber, this could subtly reinforce specific vibration modes, although to what degree remains speculative. The suggestion is that the chamber is not entirely passive. Its material composition interacts with the waves it contains, adding another layer of complexity to the acoustic and physical environment. Historically, the ancient Egyptians did not leave records describing the piezoelectric properties of quartz, nor do we have evidence of electrical technology in the Old Kingdom. But the correlation between sound, material, and geometric precision is striking. The granite blocks were selected, quarried, and positioned with extraordinary care, and they contain a mineral whose properties would later become critical in electronic technology. Whether intentional or coincidental, this intersection of natural material and engineered space offers a tantalizing connection between ancient construction and modern physics. Experimental studies of piezoelectric effects in stone are ongoing. Contemporary geophysicists have measured electrical currents generated in quartz-rich rocks under mechanical stress, demonstrating the principle at scales ranging from millimeters to meters. The challenge is scaling these findings to the scale of the pyramid, where blocks weigh tens of tons and the chambers extend across meters of space. Yet theoretical calculations indicate that even small electrical potentials, when distributed across large volumes of piezoelectric material, could produce measurable local effects, particularly under sustained vibratory excitation. Another point of interest is the potential influence on human perception. While the electrical effects produced by vibrating quartz would be far too small to detect directly, they could theoretically interact with naturally occurring electromagnetic fields. Some researchers in neuroscience and psychoacoustics have proposed that subtle electromagnetic variations can influence human perception of space, mood, or sensation, though these hypotheses remain speculative. In the context of ancient rituals performed in enclosed resonant chambers, such effects, however minimal, might have contributed to a sense of presence, awe, or altered awareness. Even if these effects were incidental, the combination of acoustic resonance, piezoelectric properties, and precise geometry creates a layered system in which multiple forces, mechanical, acoustic, and electrical, interact simultaneously. The pyramid emerges not as a simple architectural achievement, but as an environment capable of complex physical phenomena, engaging sound, stone, and energy in ways that remain only partially understood. The presence of quartz adds an extra dimension to the mystery. It links the pyramid's ancient construction to modern concepts of energy transduction, electronic oscillation, and wave mechanics. It bridges time, connecting the precise placement of stone thousands of years ago with principles of physics that humanity would only formalize millennia later. The idea that vibration, material, and geometry could combine to produce subtle electrical effects transforms the way we perceive the pyramid, not just as a silent monument, but as a structure that, in principle, participates in the energetic world around it. Ultimately, the quartz connection challenges the boundary between architecture and physics. While most scientists remain cautious about over-interpreting these properties, the simple presence of piezoelectric crystals in massive, precisely positioned granite blocks makes the discussion scientifically plausible. It adds a layer of mystery to the acoustic phenomena already observed and opens the door to further interdisciplinary study, bridging geology, physics, and archaeology. In standing within a chamber filled with granite rich in quartz, one can imagine the human voice as more than sound alone. Each vibration, each chant, each hum may interact with the stone at a microscopic level, nudging charges across crystalline lattices, amplifying waves, and creating subtle currents of energy within a space that has endured for millennia. The pyramid is not merely a tomb or a symbol, it is a confluence of stone, sound, and mineral energy, a testament to the unexpected ways that natural materials can shape human experience. Quartz, the silent crystal within the stone, reminds us that even the most seemingly inert materials can hold surprises. Within the resonant halls of the Great Pyramid, sound does not simply vanish, it becomes entwined with the very fabric of the stone. It whispers through the crystals, hinting at the delicate interplay of vibration, energy, and geometry that lies at the heart of this ancient wonder. The Great Pyramid of Giza is often admired for its sheer scale and the precision with which it was built, but to focus solely on its size is to overlook another, subtler dimension of its genius: geometry. Within its towering stone walls lies a network of chambers, passages, and corridors, each arranged with meticulous care. The angles are exact, the dimensions deliberate, and the surfaces, especially those of granite, polished to near perfection. While this precision has traditionally been interpreted as a testament to engineering prowess and symbolic intent, modern science suggests another layer of purpose. The pyramid's internal geometry may function as an instrument, shaping the behavior of waves as skillfully as any concert hall or modern auditorium. In contemporary acoustic design, architects manipulate space to control how sound propagates. The shape of a room, the materials of its surfaces, and the angles at which walls meet all contribute to reverberation, clarity, and tonal quality. Concert halls, recording studios, and even large lecture theatres are designed with painstaking attention to geometry, ensuring that sound is not lost, muddled, or unevenly distributed. Reflective surfaces, diffusers, and precise spatial proportions can amplify desired frequencies, create uniform sound coverage, and even enhance the perception of harmony. In principle, the same physics applies to any enclosed space, from a modern hall to an ancient stone chamber. Inside the pyramid, the geometry is extraordinary in both scale and precision. The king's chamber, for example, is constructed entirely from massive granite blocks. The walls, floor, and ceiling are carefully aligned, and the joints between stones are astonishingly tight, sometimes less than half a millimeter. These flat, polished surfaces serve not only structural purposes, but also influence how vibrations interact with the space. Sound waves introduced into the chamber reflect predictably, producing standing waves and nodes of reinforcement at specific frequencies. The dimensions of the chamber themselves appear to favor resonance in a particular range. Research indicates that the king's chamber naturally amplifies frequencies near 100 to 120 Hz, corresponding roughly to the pitch of a deep male voice. In modern architectural terms, this is the frequency range most associated with warmth, body, and resonance in music. In other words, the chamber is shaped in such a way that certain vocal tones are enhanced, circulating within the room and interacting with the massive granite surfaces to create a sustained, immersive experience. Even more remarkable is the sequence of spaces leading to the chamber. The grand gallery, the ascending passage, and smaller antechambers all form a carefully orchestrated progression of volumes and shapes. The grand gallery, with its corbelled walls narrowing toward the ceiling, acts as a waveguide, channeling sound waves upward and potentially toward the king's chamber. Such a structure is strikingly similar in principle to modern architectural devices that direct acoustic energy from one area to another. In this sense, the pyramid is not merely a collection of rooms, but a coherent spatial system in which geometry actively shapes the propagation of energy. Angles, too, play a critical role. The walls of the pyramid are not vertical in the same sense as a typical building. Slight deviations in angle influence the reflection and focusing of waves. Even small changes in slope can alter how standing waves form and where nodes of amplification occur. The ancient builders, working without modern instruments, achieved a precision that continues to astonish engineers today. Measurements indicate that many of the internal angles and alignments deviate from theoretical perfection by only a few arc minutes. Such accuracy is far beyond what would be expected in a purely utilitarian tomb and suggests an acute awareness of spatial relationships. Polished surfaces contribute as well. Smooth granite does not absorb much sound. Instead, it reflects it efficiently. These reflective planes enhance resonance, allowing vibrations to persist longer and interact more completely with the space. In modern acoustics, reflective surfaces are deliberately positioned to enrich tone and create a sense of fullness. The pyramid's interior, with its polished granite blocks, naturally achieves this effect, supporting the idea that the builders understood, even intuitively, how surface quality could shape sound. The interplay of dimensions, angles, and material properties suggests that the pyramid could function as an instrument of resonance on multiple levels. The king's chamber resonates with low-frequency vocal tones. The grand gallery channels these vibrations, and the entire internal system appears to form a complex network in which waves interact, reinforce, and circulate. Unlike a modern concert hall, however, this system was not designed for entertainment or musical performance. Instead, its resonance may have been intended for ritual, initiation, or ceremonial purposes in which the amplification and shaping of sound were integral to human experience. This perspective reframes our understanding of the pyramid. It is not simply a tomb or a monument to kingship. It is an acoustic architecture of monumental scale, a space designed to manipulate waves as skillfully as any engineered environment today. The design exploits fundamental principles of physics: resonance, reflection, interference, and the interaction between geometry and material. The result is a structure that transforms sound into a tangible presence, surrounding human voices and movements with a subtle physical and psychological force. The implications extend even further. If the pyramid's geometry influences sound so profoundly, it invites speculation about other forms of wave energy, such as electromagnetic fields, which may similarly interact with the structure's precise dimensions. Studies have suggested that the internal layout can focus energy into specific chambers, reinforcing the idea that geometry was employed to shape energy in multiple domains. While these hypotheses remain the subject of ongoing research, they underscore the sophistication inherent in the pyramid's design. Architecture as an instrument requires more than intuition. It requires observation, experimentation, and refinement. While we cannot know the extent to which the ancient Egyptians understood the physics behind their constructions, the alignment of material, shape, and spatial proportion demonstrates an extraordinary awareness of how built space affects experience. Every angle, every polished surface, every chamber dimension contributes to the behavior of waves, whether audible or otherwise. In modern terms, we might describe the pyramid as an enormous resonant system, a combination of instrument, architectural marvel, and ritual space. Human presence within it transforms the interior environment. Sound circulates, vibrations persist, and the chamber itself appears to participate in the experience. The geometry is not passive, it is an active participant, shaping energy and perception alike. Standing within such a space, one senses the convergence of mathematics, material, and human intent. Geometry here is not abstract, it is lived and felt. It molds sound, it interacts with bodies, and it creates an environment where physical laws and human perception meet. In doing so, the pyramid exemplifies one of the oldest known applications of acoustic architecture, a discipline that would not be formally recognized until millennia later. Through its deliberate geometry, the Great Pyramid demonstrates that ancient architects were capable not only of monumental construction, but of manipulating space and energy with astonishing subtlety. The angles, dimensions, and polished granite surfaces converge to form a coherent acoustic instrument, one that interacts with the world in ways that continue to challenge our understanding. It is an enduring reminder that architecture is more than shelter or symbol. In the hands of masters, it becomes a medium for experience, sensation, and the profound interplay between matter and energy. The builders understood the subtleties of stone. Granite, used in the upper chambers, is exceptionally hard and dense. Moving it, shaping it, and positioning it without cracking required both skill and foresight. Limestone, used in the bulk of the pyramid, is more forgiving yet still necessitates careful handling to maintain the integrity of large blocks. The arrangement of these materials was not random. Heavier stones are positioned strategically to bear loads, while lighter limestone completes the structure without compromising stability. Each decision reflects empirical knowledge of mechanics,
stress distribution, and the long-term behavior of stone under immense weight. Precision alignment is another marvel. The pyramid is oriented almost perfectly to the cardinal points, with deviations of only a few arc minutes. Its base is level to within millimeters across hundreds of meters. For modern engineers, achieving such accuracy without modern instruments would seem nearly impossible, yet the ancient builders accomplished it. Surveying methods using sighting rods, plumb lines, and the stars may have been employed, yet the resulting precision exceeds what one might expect from purely observational techniques. It suggests a sophisticated methodology, honed over generations, capable of translating abstract geometric concepts into physical reality at an enormous scale. Geometric ratios also reveal intent beyond mere utility. The proportions of the pyramid, the angles of its faces, and the dimensions of its internal chambers suggest a deep awareness of mathematical relationships. Some ratios approximate
the golden ratio, others align with harmonics observed in resonance physics. Whether the builders consciously applied these ratios to shape sound and vibration or arrived at them through refined craftsmanship is uncertain. Yet the correspondence between geometry and the behavior of waves inside the chambers hints at a level of sophistication that bridges material science, mathematics, and an intuitive understanding of physics. Beyond material and geometric mastery, there is evidence to suggest that the builders may have understood something more subtle: the interaction between space, vibration, and human perception. Across cultures and throughout history, sound has been treated as a sacred, transformative force. Ancient Egyptian texts describe the creative power of speech and chant, and rituals often incorporated vocalization, instruments, and rhythmic movement. Sound was not merely ornamental, it was believed to connect humans with the divine, to influence consciousness, and to shape the experience of space. The pyramid, with its resonant chambers and precise geometry, may represent the ultimate architectural embodiment of these beliefs. The king's chamber, with its granite walls and amplified frequencies, seems to have been designed for more than containment. Its dimensions favor standing waves in the range of deep human voices, and its reflective surfaces prolong vibrations in ways that would enhance ritual chanting. The Grand Gallery, with its ascending passage and waveguide-like form, appears to channel sound toward the chamber, reinforcing energy and concentration. Even the Queen's Chamber, constructed of limestone and producing a quieter acoustic environment, suggests an awareness of material influence on sound. Collectively, these spaces form a coherent acoustic system that engages both body and mind, transforming the act of vocalization into a multi-sensory experience. The presence of quartz within granite adds another layer to this complexity. Quartz is piezoelectric. It can convert mechanical vibrations into electrical energy and vice versa. When combined with the pyramid's geometric precision and the acoustic amplification of sound, this property raises the possibility that the builders created a space where energy, whether sonic, vibratory, or electromagnetic, was subtly concentrated. While it is speculative to claim intentionality in this domain, the mere presence of these interacting factors suggests that the pyramid is not simply a static tomb, but a carefully tuned environment. Ancient cultures often associated sacred architecture with transformation. Temples, ziggurats, and megalithic chambers around the world were designed to influence perception through scale, light, and sound. In this context, the pyramid fits within a broader pattern of ritualized space, yet it elevates the concept to an unprecedented degree. Here, human action, speech, movement, ritual interacts with material and geometry, creating a feedback loop that alters perception. Participants in these spaces would have felt vibrations not only in their ears but throughout their bodies, potentially inducing awe, reverence, or altered states of consciousness. The builders' knowledge, then, was both empirical and experiential. They understood weight, balance, and structural integrity, but they also seem to have recognized the subtle forces that emerge when sound meets carefully arranged stone. Their work suggests a conceptual blending of physics and philosophy, engineering and spirituality. Architecture becomes a medium through which human experience is amplified, guided, and transformed. Even today, researchers continue to uncover layers of sophistication in the pyramid. Acoustic experiments, electromagnetic simulations, and material analyses reveal a structure that responds dynamically to human presence and to energy introduced into its chambers. Modern technology allows us to quantify these effects, yet it cannot fully convey the visceral impact of standing within such spaces. For the ancient Egyptians, these phenomena may have been understood intuitively, if not formally, as part of a ritualized, sacred knowledge transmitted across generations. Ultimately, the builders' knowledge challenges modern assumptions about the limits of ancient science. While much of their understanding may have been practical or ceremonial rather than theoretical, the result is a structure that anticipates principles of modern engineering, acoustics, and even electronics. Stone, sound, geometry, and human perception converge to create an environment that is as intellectually profound as it is physically imposing. What do you think about this? Share with us in the comments section. While mainstream scholarship emphasizes its function as a tomb for Pharaoh, Khufu, a growing number of researchers and enthusiasts have proposed more radical interpretations, particularly in light of the pyramid's remarkable acoustic and material properties. Some suggest that the structure was more than a monument or a burial site. They propose that it may have been designed to manipulate energy, vibration, and resonance in ways that go far beyond our conventional understanding of ancient architecture. These theories often focus on the pyramid's internal chambers and the precision of its construction. The king's chamber, for instance, is composed entirely of granite, a material dense enough to reflect sound efficiently and rich in quartz crystals capable of piezoelectric activity. The grand gallery, with its narrowing corbelled walls, functions acoustically like a waveguide, channeling sound toward the central chamber. The queen's chamber, constructed of limestone and producing a different acoustic environment, adds to the notion that the builders were intentionally shaping sonic experience. Taken together, these features suggest a deliberate orchestration of vibrational phenomena within the pyramid. One of the more provocative ideas is that the pyramid functioned as a vibration device. Proponents argue that the resonant chambers could have amplified specific frequencies of sound to create strong, sustained vibrations throughout the structure. Chanting, drumming, or even simple vocalization within these spaces could have caused the stone itself to hum. Such resonance might have been more than symbolic. It could have influenced the physical environment, transmitted energy through the structure, or even interacted with the human body. Some theorists speculate that initiates in ancient rituals would have felt vibrations in their very bones, a tactile reinforcement of sacred experience. A related but more speculative theory suggests that the pyramid operated as an energy system. In modern physics, it is well understood that structures of certain geometry and material composition can focus and concentrate energy. Simulations from 2018 showed that the pyramid could interact with electromagnetic waves, concentrating energy into specific chambers. While mainstream archaeology does not attribute intentional electromagnetic function to the builders, the physics is plausible. Massive granite blocks containing piezoelectric quartz, arranged within precise geometric volumes, could, in principle, influence energy distribution. If these interactions occurred naturally, ancient occupants may have been aware of the effects, consciously or intuitively. The concept of the pyramid as a resonance generator extends this idea further. In modern laboratories, resonant cavities are used to amplify and control wave energy with remarkable precision, whether for sound, microwaves, or even particle acceleration. The king's chamber, with its granite walls, dimensions aligned to low-frequency vocal tones, and polished surfaces, exhibits properties remarkably similar to a large-scale resonant cavity. Standing within the chamber, sound does not simply fade. It circulates, reinforcing itself, producing sustained, immersive vibrations. To some theorists, this demonstrates that the pyramid may have been constructed to harness resonance as a functional phenomenon, shaping the experience of sound, energy, and perhaps even consciousness itself. These interpretations, however, remain controversial. Mainstream Egyptology emphasizes the pyramid's historical and symbolic functions, noting that no ancient records explicitly describe the pyramid as an energy device or vibration system. Skeptics caution against projecting modern technological concepts onto structures built thousands of years ago. They argue that granite and quartz properties, while intriguing, are incidental and that resonant acoustic effects may have been a byproduct of construction rather than an intended feature. Even the precise geometry could have been motivated by structural stability, ritual symbolism, or aesthetic ideals rather than wave manipulation. Yet, the persistence of these theories points to an undeniable truth. We do not fully understand the purpose of the pyramid's internal design. Even after centuries of excavation, measurement, and analysis, questions remain. Why do the king's and queen's chambers behave so differently acoustically? Why do the granite blocks fit with such extraordinary precision? How did the builders achieve such exact alignment without modern surveying instruments? The combination of material properties, spatial geometry, and acoustic behavior continues to challenge conventional explanations. Beyond physics and engineering, these radical theories invite a broader philosophical reflection. If the pyramid were designed to manipulate vibration or energy, it would suggest that ancient knowledge encompassed a sophisticated understanding of natural phenomena that we are only beginning to quantify. Such a perspective reframes the pyramid not as a static object of historical curiosity, but as a dynamic system, one in which architecture, sound, and matter interact in ways that transcend time. It suggests that the ancient builders may have intuitively grasped principles that echo in modern science: resonance, energy concentration, and the interplay between human perception and physical environment. Even the most cautious interpretations acknowledge the pyramid's complexity. Acoustic experiments confirm that the chambers amplify sound at specific frequencies. Simulations indicate potential electromagnetic focusing effects. Quartz within the granite blocks could, under vibration, generate electrical charges. Each of these phenomena is remarkable on its own, yet taken together, they suggest a multidimensional system in which material, space, and energy converge. The extraordinary precision of construction implies deliberate intent, although the nature of that intent remains elusive. Some researchers also examine cross-cultural parallels. Around the world, ancient structures, Greek amphitheaters, Mayan temples, megalithic chambers, demonstrate an awareness of sound and vibration. Sacred architecture often incorporates acoustic design to enhance ritual, communication, and perception. The Great Pyramid may represent an apex of this tradition, an environment in which vibration, geometry, and human experience intersect in unprecedented ways. Whether intended as a tool for ritual, energy manipulation, or symbolic resonance, the pyramid stands as a testament to the ingenuity of its creators. In considering these radical theories, it becomes clear that the Great Pyramid functions on multiple levels simultaneously. It is a tomb, a monument, an architectural achievement, and potentially a resonant system capable of amplifying sound and concentrating energy. The overlap between acoustic, material, and geometric phenomena invites ongoing investigation, challenging researchers to integrate physics, archaeology, and experimental study in order to understand the structure more fully. The controversy itself is instructive. Scientific progress often begins with questions that challenge prevailing assumptions. By exploring the possibility that the pyramid was designed to manipulate vibration and energy, researchers are not dismissing historical context. Rather, they are expanding the boundaries of inquiry. Even if some hypotheses are ultimately disproven, the investigation deepens our appreciation for the sophistication of ancient engineering and the subtle ways in which material and form can shape human experience. Ultimately, the pyramid remains a mystery precisely because it engages phenomena that are at once physical, perceptual, and conceptual. Whether it served as a vibration device, an energy system, a resonance generator, or simply a tomb imbued with symbolic meaning, it demonstrates that human ingenuity can intersect with natural law in ways that endure for millennia. Its internal chambers are not inert. They respond to sound, to material properties, and perhaps to forces that we have only begun to measure. In this tension between mainstream scholarship and radical speculation, one fact stands out. The Great Pyramid continues to challenge our understanding. Its design embodies principles that resonate with both the laws of physics and the mysteries of human perception. Every granite wall, every chamber, every corridor hints at knowledge that transcends conventional explanation, reminding us that even the oldest structures can hold secrets waiting for those willing to explore their depths. The ongoing debate underscores a profound reality. The pyramid's internal design is not fully understood. For every measured frequency, every polished block, and every perfectly aligned angle, there remains the question of purpose. Were these features practical, ceremonial, symbolic, or something more? Until we reconcile these possibilities, the pyramid stands not only as a testament to ancient skill, but as a silent challenge to modern science, inviting us to consider that the ancients may have understood the interplay between space, vibration, and human experience far better than we have yet acknowledged. Throughout human history, the interaction between sound and space has captivated civilizations across the globe. From the earliest settlements to the grand temples of antiquity, architects and builders appear to have understood intuitively how geometry, material, and volume influence acoustic behavior. This awareness manifests in structures that continue to astonish scholars today, each revealing a subtle grasp of vibration, resonance, and human perception. The Great Pyramid of Giza, with its carefully constructed chambers and corridors, seems to belong to this broader tradition, embodying principles of acoustic architecture on a scale and precision that remain unparalleled. Consider the ancient Mayans, for example. Their ceremonial centers and pyramids were not simply monuments to rulers or gods. They were constructed with sound in mind. Archaeologists have documented that certain temple platforms and stairways were shaped to mimic natural sounds. In some cases, the act of clapping, speaking, or playing instruments would produce echoes that resemble the calls of birds, a phenomenon thought to reinforce symbolic connections between humans, nature, and the divine. These acoustic effects were not incidental. The Mayans carefully aligned staircases, platforms, and enclosures to exploit natural reflection and resonance, demonstrating an understanding of sound propagation that modern engineers would recognize as sophisticated. Similarly, Greek theaters provide a more documented example of intentional acoustic design. The open-air amphitheaters of antiquity were constructed on hillsides, their semicircular arrangements and tiered seating amplifying the spoken word so that even spectators in the highest rows could hear performances clearly. The material of the seats, the curvature of the stage, and the angle of the walls combined to project sound without modern technology. Architectural treatises from the period, such as those by Vitruvius, describe the importance of acoustics in theater design, underscoring that ancient societies valued the deliberate manipulation of sound in communal spaces. In Europe, prehistoric stone circles and chambers reveal a different but equally fascinating acoustic sensibility. Sites such as Callanish in Scotland or Newgrange in Ireland exhibit remarkable echo effects. Sound introduced into the chambers or among standing stones is reflected and amplified in ways that suggest intentional placement to achieve particular auditory phenomena. Whether these effects were ritualistic, symbolic, or functional remains debated, but the repeated use of circular arrangements, narrow passages, and resonant cavities indicates a clear awareness of how space and material influence sound. The principle connecting these examples is the same. Human civilizations have long experimented with sound as a means of shaping experience. Whether through ritual, performance, or symbolism, architects recognized that the environment could amplify, focus, or transform sound. These practices were neither accidental nor purely aesthetic. They reflect a sophisticated understanding of the physics of waves, even if described in spiritual or symbolic terms. Acoustics became a medium through which space, human activity, and perception could converge. Within this global tradition, the Great Pyramid of Giza represents a striking case of extreme sophistication. The pyramid is constructed of massive blocks of granite and limestone, arranged with extraordinary precision to create a series of resonant chambers. Each chamber exhibits distinct acoustic characteristics. The King's Chamber amplifies low-frequency tones. The Queen's Chamber produces a more muted echo, and the Grand Gallery channels sound in ways reminiscent of a waveguide. These effects suggest that the builders had more than an aesthetic or symbolic intention. They appear to have orchestrated an environment in which sound was central to human experience. Modern acoustic studies reinforce this interpretation. Measurements within the pyramid reveal standing waves, zones of sound amplification, and interactions between surfaces that extend the life of sound far beyond what would occur in ordinary spaces. The dimensions of the chambers and the polished surfaces of granite blocks enhance reflection, creating immersive auditory experiences. Combined with the piezoelectric properties of quartz crystals embedded in the stone, these chambers are capable of subtle interactions between mechanical and electrical energy, adding further complexity to the acoustic environment. The significance of the pyramid in this context lies not only in its technical sophistication, but also in its scale. Unlike smaller temples, theaters, or stone circles, the pyramid operates as an acoustic system at monumental proportions. Its internal chambers, passages, and galleries form a network in which sound can be directed, amplified, and sustained across vast distances. The careful orchestration of geometry, material, and volume creates an environment in which human activity, chanting, movement, or speech interacts with the structure in ways that are perceptible, tangible, and profoundly immersive. This tradition of acoustic architecture suggests that the Egyptians, like other ancient civilizations, regarded sound as more than a byproduct of activity. Sound was a tool, a medium through which space could be shaped and perception influenced. Chanting in a resonant chamber, for example, would not only carry meaning in ritual terms, but also create a physical sensation of vibration, reinforcing psychological and spiritual effects. The pyramid, then, may have functioned as a carefully calibrated instrument of human experience, translating abstract concepts of harmony, resonance, and energy into a tangible architectural reality. It is also important to recognize the cultural continuity of this knowledge. Across time and geography, builders repeatedly sought to integrate sound and space. Whether in Mesoamerica, Greece, or Europe, the manipulation of acoustics served functional, ceremonial, and symbolic purposes. The Great Pyramid emerges within this continuum as a pinnacle of achievement, combining structural ingenuity with a subtle mastery of vibration, reflection, and resonance that remains difficult to fully comprehend. Moreover, the global tradition of acoustic architecture underscores the universality of human curiosity. Civilizations separated by oceans and millennia independently explored the relationship between sound and space. They discovered, perhaps through observation and ritual practice, that geometry, material, and human activity interact to produce extraordinary effects. In this light, the pyramid is not an isolated marvel, but part of a broader human endeavor, the pursuit of environments that amplify not only sound, but also experience, perception, and consciousness. The pyramid's contribution to this tradition is particularly remarkable because it anticipates principles that modern acoustics formalizes scientifically. Standing waves, waveguides, and resonant cavities are central to contemporary understanding of sound, yet the Egyptians achieved comparable effects intuitively through trial, observation, and precise craftsmanship. This achievement emphasizes the depth of their empirical knowledge and their ability to translate abstract principles into enduring functional architecture. In considering the pyramid as part of a global tradition of acoustic architecture, we gain a new perspective on its significance. It is not merely a tomb or a symbol of political power, it is a sophisticated experiment in human perception, a structure that mediates the interaction between sound, space, and consciousness. It demonstrates that the ancients were attentive to subtleties of wave behavior, that they valued experiences shaped by vibration, and that they understood, at least in practice, principles of resonance that would only later be articulated by modern science. Ultimately, the Great Pyramid exemplifies the long human fascination with the interplay between sound and space. Like Mayan temples echoing bird calls, Greek theaters projecting voices to the farthest rows, or stone circles that transform claps into reverberations, the pyramid embodies a conscious exploration of acoustic phenomena. It stands as one of the earliest and most sophisticated examples of this global pursuit, a monumental testament to humanity's enduring desire to understand, manipulate, and harmonize with the invisible waves that shape our perception of the world. Thank you for joining us on this extraordinary journey through the universe on frontiers of infinity. If this glimpse into the unknown has sparked your curiosity, be sure to subscribe and join us, where we unravel the darkest mysteries of space.